are listening to LOA Recon with the Good Vibe coach Jeanette Ma, where we dissect the ins and outs and the art and science of conscious creation, all intended to amp up your manifesting game. Let's have some fun together. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of LOA Recon. I also wanted to say thanks to everyone who sent me such sweet notes about how much you're enjoying these episodes. I have a ton of fun making them, but it means so much to me to know that you're enjoying them too. So thanks for all your notes. I appreciate that. And I wanted to share today about this realization the other day. I realized, oh my gosh, I am practicing my problem really well. I had one in particular that I kept turning over and over in my head, trying to figure a way to work it out, was plotting and analyzing my way to a solution, which we know doesn't work. But there I was doing it anyway. It felt kind of like when you're messing around with a Rubik's Cube, right? When you don't know how to solve one. It's like no matter which way you look at it, no matter which parts you turn, it just isn't coming together. And pretty soon you keep that routine up, it starts to look like an impossible problem. That's where I was. Kept thinking about what else could go wrong, and the more I looked for answers, the bigger my hole got that I was digging for myself. Conscious creators know this routine doesn't work, but it doesn't keep us from doing it sometimes, does it? At least until we realize that that's what's up. As soon as I recognized, look, girl, you're doing a really good job of practicing this problem, I realized what I needed to do was program Universe with new instructions, because here it was getting very clear direction from me on what to make wrong. I was giving it so much airtime with so much emotion. I mean, that's an undeniable instruction. Universe has to get things screwy for me when I'm practicing that so well. So with that awareness, I realized it is time to start practicing your happy ending, or even just happiness in general. So once I got in my right mind, I decided to stop making myself such a good match for obstacles and start allowing good answers. And I did that just by practicing my happily ever after story, because I wanted that to be the instruction that Universe got for me. That's what I wanted to experience. And we all know we can't get that until we can vibrate it. So by telling the story, I'm starting to shift my vibration. So I did. I started telling myself about how, did you just hear my energy shift when I started thinking about my story? That's a sign of how well I've practiced it, that just thinking about it already, I start to feel better. But the first time I practiced it, I was a little out of practice on that story. I'd been doing that problem so well. It was kind of hard for me to find the language and the feeling of the happily ever after again. But I know how it works. You just keep practicing and eventually you'll get better at it. Lord knows I was getting really good at that problem. So I did. I started telling myself how everything worked out perfectly and how I lived happily ever after, and it turned out even better than I imagined. In fact, even better than I dreamed, because sometimes what I imagined wasn't very good, so that felt like a pretty low bar. So I said, even better than I dreamed, and how I got what I wanted and then some. And I told myself about how I learned to say yes to dreams come true and how I loved every minute of it. And I reminded myself about how I know what it feels like to be so happy that I literally feel like I might float out of myself. I know that feeling. I remember that. And I reminded myself that I know how to let Universe arrange it way better than I ever could. And I know what it's like to wake up happy and to look forward to the day. I know how to revel in an amazing life. And I'm really good at letting life be that good and even better. And I told myself about how the people are fabulous and the place is amazing and it feels so magic to be where I am. And I didn't use like specific details in this version of my happily ever after. I kept it pretty generic, but I know someone recently who did tell a happily ever after story with lots of details. And her details, they were so wild and crazy. They were the sort of good that they're so good you wouldn't really expect it to happen. Like imagining a total stranger to appear out of the blue to give you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? She was imagining something like that, those sorts of details. And guess what? You imagine something like that just for fun, right? Or at least she did. She was imagining it for fun, not to make it happen, but because just the thought of it gave her some relief. Guess what? Like a week later, that exact thing happened. I couldn't believe that story. I was like, I did believe that story. And I wanted to create one of those for myself. That's really what made me realize, oh my good Lord, the story I've been telling myself isn't one of fabulous endings. It's the problem version. So I started practicing my happily ever after, and I didn't have specific details of how everything came together. I just talked about good things across the board in general, like how my money was loving it and my health is better than ever and I feel amazing in my body and my relationships are through the roof rewarding and enjoyable and my work is thriving and my clients are rocking it. My animals are happy and healthy and loving life just like I am. And that I'm having more fun and experiencing more love and laughing more than ever and learning amazing things and having great ideas and feeling so inspired and just loving this amazing life so much and appreciating things like I never did before and telling myself like I feel so lucky to be here, especially since I know that things just get better no matter how good they seem. Even when it seems like they can't possibly get any better, guess what? They keep doing. They keep getting better. I know this routine. I've been there and I've done that. It's a story I've lived. It's not just one I can conjure from imagination. But even if I didn't have any real life past experience with it, even if it was just from imagination instead of memory, guess what? That's still all it takes to conjure it. So I did. I reminded myself I'm good at this stuff and that I'm good at focusing on what I want. And I know how to let universe do the magic. And all I have to do is practice what I prefer. And I'll tell you what, happily ever after, that's a story worth practicing. It's one that I'm committed to getting better at because I was learning those problems by heart, and that's not what I want at the tip of my tongue. I want to know the version where I thrive and smile and delight in this amazing life. And I might find myself practicing those problems again, but when I do, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to use that awareness to recognize that I'm doing it again and use it as a nudge to go back to my happily ever after story. And I might amend it. I might add flourishing touches. I might streamline it. I could do whatever I'm in the mood for with it. But that's where I want to hang out, with the happily ever after, not the problems. I know I'm not the only one who sometimes practices problems better than the preferences. So I thought I'd share this with anyone else who could use a reminder to pay attention to which story you're getting good at telling. And I can promise you, it really does get easier with practice. Thanks for listening, everyone, and happy manifesting.